again, provided to your body by your diet, balanced diet, eat a little bit of everything, don't just eat pizza every day, sesame chicken, or whatever it is, the one thing you want every day, okay? So adequate for soft tissue and for your bony structures, so your bones and your teeth. Eat well. You have macro minerals and micro minerals. You have less than 5 gram quantity in your entire body. It is a micro, and if it's, I'm sorry, macro, and then if it's less than, it's micro. So 5 grams in your entire body is macro. There you go. So calcium, phosphorus, potassium chloride, sodium, magnesium. We're going to talk about each one of those. And then your micro minerals, less than 5 grams in your entire body. So iron and iodine, zinc, selenium, and then very small minerals, trace elements, are the ones listed. So again, we're going to talk about each one of them individually. So your macro minerals. So calcium. You know the importance of calcium. That's why your mother made you drink milk as a child, right? Any of you still drink milk? No? Your bone structure, actually your body absorbs calcium for your bone structure till about age 21, and then after that it's all downhill. So encourage your kids to drink milk when they're young, because you're building all that when you're young. Once you hit 21, you're all downhill. So a large amount of mineral is again your calcium. 99% of it is in your bone, right? Again, it's calcium phosphate. It's not stationary. Kind of, you know, your osteoclast and your osteoblast. Your bones are always morphing. Technically, I've heard this somewhere, I'm not exactly sure where, but like every 7 years you technically have a new skeleton. Your body basically changes it over, eating it, dispositing it. So about every 7 years you have a new skeleton. You will excrete your excess in your urine, which is a good thing, okay, except when you have kidney failure. Okay, but again, excreting in your urine. And that's your normal value, 8.6 to 10.0. Higher in children, because their bones are building a little faster, right? And plus your mother is standing there over you, drink your milk, drink your milk. Yep, no milk and cheese. You do know that your body will not, let's see, you need vitamins to get your calcium to be absorbed. What vitamins are they?
Vitamin D.
You need vitamin D to help with the absorption of calcium. And that's why vitamin D is put in your milk, okay, to help with the absorption. Do you know why vitamin A is put in your milk? Vitamin A and D, you ever read the labels? Vitamin A is actually for your eyes, and so they just figured they'll put it in there because that will help you. So don't eat carrots, drink your milk. Body calcium functions as an intracellular messenger. So again, the contraction of muscle fibers. So calcium is very important for heart function. Okay. Secretion of hormones and fluids, transfer of ion, cell motility, and mitosis. Mitosis is cell division, mitocell, so it's all everything except the sex cell, right? And then again, decrease in neuromuscular irritability. So what is neuromuscular irritability? You ever wake up in the morning with that Charlie horse that just kills you? And a lot of times they'll say eat a banana, right? So you have potassium, but it can also be drink a glass of milk. It can also be your calcium. It's not always potassium, it can be your potassium or calcium. And again, you know that you need calcium for blood coagulation, because when you were in coagulation, was calcium not a reagent that you added in your protein or PTT? I'm sorry, you know that you needed it for blood coagulation as well. Forms of calcium: you have ionized calcium or free calcium, non-diffused, bound to proteins or albumin. The ionized or free calcium is usually measured by the respiratory department. Usually when they do blood gases, they do the ionized calcium. We recently have the capability of doing an ionized calcium. However, we're not getting very many orders for it, so I got a feeling it's going to go away because we're just not recouping our money, or they're just not ordering it. When you were getting it automatically when you did a blood gas, you're just not ordering ionized calcium, so I got a feeling it's going to go away. Anyway. we usually do a total calcium in chemistry. Your calcium concentration is regulated by two hormones. This is what causes your homeostasis of your calcium. So if your calcium increases, your phosphorus will decrease. So it's an inverse relationship. Okay, so your PTH, your parathyroid, where is your parathyroid gland? It's like if you think of your thyroid as a bow tie, it's like the little points on the bow tie, right? 4 little parathyroids, okay. If you have parathyroid problems, your calcium will be, again, what's normal? About 8 to 10, again, if we're just kind of looking at round numbers. So if you're having a parathyroid problem, a lot of times your values will be 14, 16, 18. They'll be really, really high. And so if the doctor removes your parathyroid gland, your value will drop by half within 20 minutes. So again, this is the one where he comes and breathes down your throat because he's got a patient laying up in surgery with his neck wide open, and he brings the specimen down and he wants to make sure your parathyroid hormone and your calcium have dropped. And so gonna breathe down your neck, and then as soon as the results come in and he's happy with it, he'll get on the phone and call and tell him to close up the patient. If not, he'll yell and scream and stomp his feet and go, dang it all, I gotta go. Anyway, it is a little nerve-wracking. So when you have a parathyroid coming from surgery, you know to have your machine calibrated and controlled and ready to go. You know that you get a surgery schedule, you know that it's ordered, and so you know you have to have that ready before they go. Because if that specimen comes down from surgery, you're not gonna be happy if you have to, I mean, look, how long did it take for our stuff to calibrate, and we're just now running controls, right? So they're not gonna be happy waiting for that. That's something you wanna have ready for them when it comes in. Also regulated by your active vitamin D, which again is your sunlight hormone, sunlight vitamin. But you do have to realize it's not just stepping out in the sun and voila, your vitamin D level is going to raise, okay? There's a lot of things that have to happen. Your skin has to be able to recept it, and then you have to have cholesterol to do its work and everything else before it actually converts into vitamin D. So it is a lot of things that have to go right. So if all else fails, you can buy little vitamin D tablets in the grocery store, and if you're low on vitamin D, actually you get a prescription for it and you don't have to pay for it. But again, it's not an expensive vitamin, so it might be good. Back in the olden days when we all did farming and we were out in the sun all day long, it wasn't a problem. But unfortunately now with skin cancer and everything else, we don't want to go out in the sun, or we put on tons of sunscreen. So therefore our vitamin D levels aren't what they used to be. And if you're listening, you're hearing more and more and more, this is causing a vitamin D shortage. This is, so a lot of things. So take your vitamin D. Back in the day, we never even did vitamin D levels on anybody, and now we get them all the time. So it is big business. PTH control of calcium, and your PTH increases calcium by pulling calcium from the bone. Increases the reabsorption of calcium from the renal tubule. Remember, calcium is eliminated by your kidney, so it tells the kidney to suck it all back. Okay. Again, stimulates the kidney to convert inactive vitamin D to active vitamin D for the absorption from your diet. Parathyroid control of your calcium. Hypercalcemia turns off your parathyroid. If you have a high calcium level, it's going to turn off the parathyroid, okay? Again, so basically a negative feedback. For your central nervous system, you can have depression, confusion, coma. For GI, you have anorexia, or inability to eat, constipation for high levels of calcium. For renal, acts as a diuretic, will lead to dehydration. So again, if your kidneys are going to let it go, water's going to go with it, you're going to have dehydration. And you can have deposit of calcium salts in soft tissue. And what does that cause? I'm sorry? Gout is uric acid. You have calcium deposits in your soft tissue. Kidney stones, bone spurs.
Oh yeah, calcium oxalate. Said, oh yeah, calcium oxalate. We just had a test over it.
There you go. There you go. Have you ever seen the movie Mask with Cher and I don't remember the other guy's name, but he had a problem where he had deposits of calcium over his face and all that stuff, and slowly what killed him was because the calcium deposited in the spine and basically closed off the spine. Because remember he had headaches and all that kind of stuff, with spinal stenosis, and that's what kind of finally got him. Hypocalcemia, so a low calcium, but you're not drinking your milk. I'd rather eat ice cream anyway, but drink your milk. Neuromuscular excitability, tetany. Tetany is when you have you heard of lockjaw? Okay, that's when your muscles tighten up and they won't release, so again, you're tightening of your jaw. Lockjaw is what they would call it, so tetany. Central nervous system irritability can cause seizures, lead to congestive heart failure. Osteoporosis is a big one that a lot of us fail, but, especially women, because estrogen plays such a high role in your calcium as well. So osteoporosis or brittle bone, sometimes you hear those are bone osteoporosis. Diseases that affect your calcium, your blood pH decreases your calcium, and alkalosis. Parathyroid gland disorders, vitamin D deficiency, renal disease, malignant bone disease, such as Paget's disease, which we touched on, which enzyme in Paget's disease. What's your bone enzyme? Alkaline phosphatase. How soon we forget? So in the lab, what are we going to do? We're going to do a total serum calcium, okay? Just a spectrophotometer. So again, I think we did manual calciums, didn't we? With the spec, I think we did, didn't we? At one point, were they purple? I think we did. Again, ionized calcium usually is dependent on the pH of the fluid. So usually that's a respiratory thing. In chemistry, we're going to do a total serum calcium. Okay, questions on calcium? Pretty easy, straightforward. Phosphate, again, it is insoluble calcium salt in your bones, so your phosphate and your calcium run hand in hand. Found widely in food, so again, you eat your phosphates. Okay. You've probably seen phosphate crystals in your urine, or you've talked about phosphate crystals in your urine. And what do they look like? Calcium looks like.
The triple phosphate is the omnivores.
Triple phosphate?
Yeah, triple phosphate.
Yeah, that's the envelope.
Should you call them envelopes or coffin lids?
Coffin lids.
Yeah, because the calcium one has the cross, where the other one is like rectangular, so we call them coffin lids. Yeah. Okay. Again, excess is secreted in your urine, just like with your calcium. Nothing major there. Again, part of your phosphate buffer system. So what are your 4 buffer systems in your blood gases? You had 4. What were they? No? They all affect your pH.
Ammonium, phosphorus, and
Bicarbonate carbonic acid. That's number 1, and that's the biggest one. And why is it the biggest one, and how does it help you?
It's quick. And
Why is it quick? What's quick about it? Why is it quick? What controls it? No, kidneys are slow, remember? It's the lungs, and so that's a good system because you have the ability to blow off your CO2. It's an acid, right? And what's the second one? Hemoglobin, because that can transfer your CO2 and your oxygen. Phosphate was your third one. The last one was. You got it. Okay. So again, part of your buffer system, control your pH. And again, as part of your membranes and your phospholipids, which we talked about back in the lipid structure. Hormone regulation of phosphorus, pretty much the same ones as your calcium, because your calcium and your phosphorus run together hand in hand, right? Normal range, 3.0 to 4.5. Increases, which will be hyperphosphatemia, so renal insufficiency. Hypervitaminosis, hypervitaminosis.
Too much.
Taking too much vitamins, yes, yes, yes. And then hypersecretion of growth hormone. Decrease due to a decrease in carb absorption, hyperparathyroidism, rickets. What's rickets?
Is it a brain? Yeah.
Rickets is a disease of the bones, where the bones look like you just got off of a
Right.
horse for 6 months, right? You're like, yep, okay. Stentorrhea, which we've talked about before, is fat in your stool. And then, again, prolonged antacid use, which can mess up your acid-base balance. Magnesium. It is a abundant cation in your body. Okay, 55% is in your bone with your calcium and your phosphorus. Magnesium sulfate is a drug that we give to stop premature labor. Okay, so if you are before 36 weeks, they will, and you go into labor, a lot of times they will try to stop it. Okay, they give you magnesium sulfate. Magnesium sulfate is a central nervous system depressant. You can stop breathing, okay? So I will tell you, pregnant women and those of you that might be pregnant at some day or have a wife that's pregnant or a significant other that's pregnant, if they start them on magnesium sulfate, do not leave the room. Stay with them, okay? Because again, the nurse isn't going to sit there and hold your hand, but have a significant other in there with you, because it can stop you from breathing. So if we are in the laboratory and we are running a magnesium on a patient, and we have a critical value high, what is it important to know before I report that result? If they are in preterm labor, are they a labor and delivery patient? Are they giving it? So when you call the labor and delivery and say, because it's a critical value, you have to call the result, okay? You want to make sure it is not drawn above the IV site. Because a lot of times the nurses will draw them and they won't pay attention and you'll get critical value highs. So again, you have to make sure it's not drawn above the IV site. Okay. So that's what magnesium sulfate is all about. So again, critical values. Usually when they want them static. Normal is 1.2 to 2.1, so again, general figures, think 1.2. When a patient is on magnesium sulfate, a lot of times their values will be 5, 6, or 7. Usually that's about the range they want for preterm labor. Okay. They have a decreased level because magnesium and calcium run kind of hand in hand. Decrease will cause tetany or muscle irritability. So again, that tightening of the muscles, the muscle spasms. Okay. Cause for malabsorption of the GI tract. You didn't absorb it when you ate it. Okay. Alcoholism or diuretics will also cause you to have a decreased level. Increase, again, will depress the central nervous system, having a sedative effect. Again, even if you're in preterm labor and we're giving you the magnesium, again, it's going to have a sedative effect and you can stop breathing. All right. Can also have an increased level if you take Epsom salts for constipation. I don't know, I still don't keep Epsom salts in there, think about drinking it, but some people do. Milk of magnesia. Right. Same thing. Your micro minerals, the ones you have the least amount of, so iron and zinc and copper. This was my very first ever PowerPoint I made by myself. With my artwork. It really was. This was the very first one. Was this one? I've morphed it a little bit since then, but I had fun with the cut and paste pictures. So iron, most abundant trace element. Okay, you need it for your hemoglobin synthesis. I learned about that in hematology, right? You know, iron is your central ion, and without it, you don't make hemoglobin and myoglobin. So again, components of catalase and peroxidase, which are enzymes. Absorbed in your intestine. So the only regulation of iron is you have to eat it, right? And your body knows how important it is, so it eats it and it hangs on to it, right? So the only way you lose it is how? How do you lose it? How do you lose it? Once you've eaten it, how do you lose it? Because it's not excreted in your kidneys, right? How do you excrete your iron?
Blood loss?
You don't, right? Your body hangs on to it. So again, blood loss, sloughing of your skin cells, okay, would be normal. You do lose a little bit in your intestine, GI bleed or anything. Again, it's absorbed in the duodenum in your intestine, okay? Tannates, do you know what tannates are? Where tannates, where you find them? No? Anybody here like tea? And who do you know that drinks tea all the time? She always has a big cup, James. Yes. Okay, so tannates in tea will decrease the absorption of iron. It actually chelates the iron in your food. If you chelate the iron, which is kind of makes it globbed on, it will actually pass through your intestinal tract, so your body will not absorb it, okay? So if you have a small child who ate their Flintstones chewables thinking they were candy, and they have a high level of iron, they're going to give them EDTA, which you know binds your calcium, will also bind your magnesium, and so that it chelates it into the larger molecule, and so you'll pass it through your intestinal tract. Okay? Because again, iron, your body knows iron is important, so it doesn't want to lose it. Another problem we have for buildup of iron is if you have a patient who has, like sickle cell or some kind of a chronic disease where they need multiple blood transfusions, and we're giving them blood transfusions from healthy people who usually have higher iron content, but because their red blood cells are rupturing, their body wants to keep all that iron, so they tend to have a buildup of iron. Okay, so sometimes people, and we'll go over it in just a second. Shut up. Your levels are 30% higher in the morning than they are in the afternoon. So why is this important? If you're somebody who the doctor is monitoring your iron level, okay, if you go one week you go and have your iron drawn or your blood drawn at 6 o'clock in the morning before school and you want to be the first one in the door, okay, the next time you're like, man, I was not going to get up early, I'm just going to go after school or whatever, and I'll go there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Your values are going to vary by 30%. So it might be your doctor's like, well, are you taking your medicine? Are you taking too much of your medicine? What's going on? So if you don't do it at the same time every day, your values are just going to vary due to variation in the time of day. So it is very important that you have them drawn at the same time every day. Okay, either always in the morning or always in the afternoon. You never want to draw iron levels during a blood transfusion, and in all honesty, you don't ever want to draw anything during a blood transfusion, but with your iron levels, it's important as well. And if you think about it, right, you're going to draw their blood, and then boom, they're going to get another unit of blood. So their values are going to change within a half an hour to an hour anyway. So if you give a patient 1 unit of blood and they have a second one ordered, you don't want to draw blood in between because your values aren't any good. But doctors will order it anyway, and it's usually a fight. They'll order like an H&H after the first unit, but they're coming down for the second unit when they're dropping off the blood. You've seen it, right? It's totally goofy, and you're like, this value is going to be no good the minute we hang that second unit. Now, if they're going to give 1 unit, draw an H&H, and then decide whether or not they're going to give a second unit based on the H&H value, that's one thing. But if they're just going to do it in between, it's really kind of goofy. So again, your iron levels are going to change, so you want to do it during the transfusion. Blood loss, again, red blood cell loss, shedding of your mucosal cells, or shedding of your cells. Menstrual cycle will drain. Kidney has no role in excess iron loss. Your kidneys do not get rid of your iron. Okay? So again, calcium does, and all those other ones will get rid of your kidneys well, but your iron. Your kidneys have played no role in excess iron. Iron transport and storage. Transport, you remember transferrin was a protein bound to bind your iron. Bound iron moves to the mitochondria for heme synthesis. Do you know that, you know how they say you're 50-50 with your mom and dad because you get half your genes from your mom, half your genes from your dad? You're actually 60-40 because you get all of your mitochondria from your mother. You don't get any from your father. I'm so sorry, but you don't. So they've actually traced mitochondria back to 3 Eves, you know, Adam and Eve. So they've actually transferred it back to the 3 women. One was in Asia, one was in like Russia, and the other one was, oh shoot, Asia, Russia, or up in the, where's the other one? Oh shoot, I can't remember. I'll have to read the article again. But anyway, so that was kind of cool. And they just did it by mitochondria, because you only get it from your parent, your mother, your father. But anyway, cells stored as ferritin, storage in ferritin, soluble iron. Hemosiderin is an insoluble iron, which we'll talk about disease states in just a second. And then that's where your iron is stored. In your liver, your bone marrow, and in your spleen. Which I'm sure you probably learned all about in hematology as well. Decreases in your iron deficiency anemia. Okay, so decrease in your iron, IDA. And yes, that is a test question, and everybody was putting IDA, and for life of me, I was like, why? And once I figured out what IDA stood for, you must again learn that in hematology, because everybody knew that answer. Real easy. If you have an increase in your transferrin, but a decrease in your iron, will also be an increase in your TIBC, which we'll talk about in a minute, your total iron binding capacity. You have a decrease in your ferritin. So just kind of give you some ideas, and again, we're going to talk about those in just a second. So increases in your iron, hemosiderosis, that's an increase in iron without tissue damage. Okay. If you have hemochromatosis, you can have hereditary or sideroblastic. I don't know if you've talked about those in hematology as well. The one that has deposits in your liver and your heart and can lead to organ failure. Talk about thalassemias, thalassemia major and thalassemia minor and all that good stuff in hematology. Again, lead poisoning can cause a problem with your iron as well. Use of oral contraceptives can also cause decrease in your iron. So if you have a normal transferrin and an increase in your iron, you have a decreased TIBC, total iron binding capacity, which again we'll talk about in a second. So iron assays, how can we find out in the lab what your iron level is? We can do a blood cell count, we can do your hemoglobin, because if your iron is low, what is your hemoglobin going to be? High or low? Low, yes. Ferritin, again, is your iron, your serum iron level, transferrin, which is your binding protein bound to your iron, and then your iron binding capacity. So here we go. Serum iron, normal is 50 to 175 micrograms per deciliter. We measure it based on the release of iron from transferrin, okay, and the reduction of the ferric ions to the ferrous ion. So you have to realize to measure your iron level, if it is bound to transferrin, what is the first thing you have to do in the procedure to measure the serum iron? You have to get it off the protein, right? You have to get it off the protein. So back in the olden days, to get a serum iron, we actually had to take your sample and add a reagent to it first, okay? And then you had to centrifuge it and measure with the, not with the supernatant, but with the bottom part. Now the reagents are all cool and everything's all combined, and now you just put it on and push go. But back in the day, we had to physically remove the protein off of the iron. But again, you guys are easy, you guys don't have to do anything. Your total iron binding capacity, your TIBC, you're going to take a known amount of ferric iron, add it to your serum, and then you're going to filter it. This is in the olden days, you don't have to do that anymore. And then you filter it as tested then again for the iron content. Hemolysis can falsely increase your total iron binding capacity, so you do not want to use a hemolyzed specimen. So how you calculate a TIBC is just your ferric iron, your iron level, plus your UIBC, urine iron binding capacity. equals your TIBC. UIBC is always a known value. So you're not gonna have to calculate that for me, but you are gonna calculate a percent saturation. So if I give you an iron value, and I give you a TIBC, you're just gonna simply divide the iron level by the total iron binding capacity times 100, and that will give you the percent saturation. But again, for serum iron measurement, what's the first thing you have to do? You got it. You have to separate iron from the protein. Yep, you got it. Normal value for transferrin, 200 to 400. Plasma ferritin levels, 20 to 250. Your plasma ferritin level is the most sensitive indicator for iron deficiency anemia. So that's really what the doctor wants to order if he's thinking that you're having a problem with your iron. So again, your plasma ferritin level. Okay. Levels decrease early in anemia, so we find out if you're having problems early. And it is more sensitive than your total iron or your total iron binding capacity. That's the one you want to do first.
What's the difference between plasma ferritin or serum ferritin? Why? I mean, should it be drawn in a plasma tube? Is that a specific test?
It is.
Ferritin a ferritin, or is a plasma ferritin different? from
It is
ferritin?
different. It is a different reagent, and the whole process is a little bit different. Yes. So they can order that one as a plasma ferritin versus, but I don't believe it's just a green top. It's a special tube, but I don't remember exactly which color it is right now. It might be the dark blue, if I'm not mistaken. We don't do those. We send them out. Zinc is the second most abundant trace element, component of enzymes, your alk-phos, aids in collagen formation to help wounds heal. Dietary sources, eat it. High fiber diet will decrease your zinc, so decrease your zinc absorption. So it passes through with the fiber. Have a little bit of trouble with your zinc in that respect. Men lose zinc more than females because they do lose it in the formation of the sperm and seminal fluid. Copper is needed for some enzymes as a cofactor for some enzyme function, important in iron metabolism, synthesis again of hemoglobin stored in your liver. Released as ceruloplasmin, which is your copper protein. Ceruloplasmin, remember from back in proteins when we talked about they were compounds? So that's your copper bound ceruloplasmin. Increased in estrogen and oral contraceptive use, decreased in neonates and malnutrition. It's your copper as well. And Wilson's disease. Wilson's disease, you have decreased blood copper because it's an increased urine copper because you're passing it in your urine. Don't write that down on the list. Decrease serum, increase urine. Yes, I do believe that's, but I'll double check on that one.